Hello, my YouTuber friends. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome from Manchester, England, visiting a friend of my son's and his family who we've known for a long time, who moved out here before we head home. Today I'm going to talk about three stocks that I bought yesterday as I see the stock market rotation happening that I dug in pretty deeply actually, and I think are pretty well discounted. So stick around, it should be a good video. Good morning. My name is Adam Kahn, and this is Investing with Adam K. I hope you're all doing well. Last leg of my trip. Here we are in the United Kingdom, out in Manchester, visiting a family that we knew for years, who moved out here. A good friend of my son, so it's kind of nice for him to get to visit and catch up, and just have some fun. They went to an amusement park yesterday. I was able to get some work done, which was pretty cool. I actually dug into three new stocks that I'm going to talk about in this video today. I initiated a new position in one of them, actually two of them, and then I added on to one because I finally think that they've sold off enough that the valuations feel pretty attractive. I'm also going to talk about a couple others that I'm holding on to because I think it's going to continue. But I think there's going to be some big ups and downs along the way because the mentality of the market is still tech. So it's going to keep people drawn in. It's going to have some big pullbacks and then rally up as if it's still going higher. But I do think, I've watched Tom Lee and some of the others, and I think the analysis is accurate that these things have fallen off so far that they're really attractive in values. So, number one, I'm going to talk about immediately because I talked about it recently about getting out of it. And I reversed and actually got back into it because I think the things that I was talking about is actually what have pushed it too far. And I think it's a great company, which is Nike. I think Nike has finally pushed into the low $70 range and seems really attractive in terms of valuation. Like when I look at it, they're still projecting increased earnings. They're still the top in their field. And the price to earnings ratio, as well as their free cash flow and everything else, is the best it's been in like 10 years. So I find that super attractive. Now, be prepared for potentially it going against you and everything else, but I put on a rather large position in this one in hopes that over the next couple of years it has a nice pullback. We see some good increase in value of the stock. It goes up as well as you get a small dividend at the same time, which is kind of nice to receive a little bit of the money. I also think that the CEO did a good report on accepting responsibility on things that they have to work on to improve their sales, which I think that's great when a leader does things like that and doesn't sit there and have excuses as to why things are bad. He simply said they need to change their direction. They've made some errors. They've become complacent. And I really like hearing things like that about a leader who thinks if they make the right changes, get things going in the right direction, that they'll be able to reverse course and start increasing profits and doing better and gaining back their market share. The other thing is, like all the things that I was talking about, I realized they've had a lot of times like this over the past 20 or 30 years where they have some downs. Other companies start looking like they're going to make an approach on them. But in the long run, they still seem to stay at the top. The other ones fall off and come and go, and they continue to keep increasing. My concern is they're still relying on Jordans and things like that, but their actual apparel portion of the company is doing better and better. And maybe that continues, and maybe that's the driver of their sales. Maybe it isn't the running shoes, but maybe they focus back on running shoes again, start picking up market share again in that end. I thought they were losing their focus. Like I said, the CEO's comments kind of recognized that and accepted responsibility and talked about improving it. So I think that's super cool. Number two on the list that I put some money in yesterday is one that I talked about a while ago. It hasn't fared too well. I think it's finally exhausted to the downside, which is Cracker Barrel. When I travel cross country not that long ago, the families I was traveling with, we stopped at Cracker Barrel and they were super busy. And I'd watched the stock price fall off. I've seen them been struggling. I thought, geez, they still seem to be doing well. Why wouldn't that be a good investment? But now I'm thinking I was probably a little bit early. I think once it got into the low $40 range, it seemed like it had finally gotten exhausted and gotten to the point that the selling didn't seem to be continuing anymore. Now, of course, like anything, this is not financial advice. You need to do your own research and make your own decisions as well as seek advice from a advisor and not listen to me, but it just finally looked exhausted. That's kind of what I look for. I think it's going to reverse course, and Cracker Barrel is one of those that I hope could actually reverse rather quickly because I don't think it's a really heavily traded stock. So once the sellers are exhausted, it should be pretty much like air on the way up. Hard to explain, just something in my mind from when I was a floor trader of how the markets reacted when they seemed to finally have reached that level of gone too far, sat there for a while, and the sellers just kind of dwindled. And once they were done, even though wasn't like the buyers came in strong, there just wasn't a whole lot of resistance as it reversed, and sometimes it just kind of kept going for a while before it hit a new level where it slowed down and seemed to catch some new sellers. And it seemed like oftentimes it really had just reversed, and even when they hit the sellers, just kind of slowed down at that next level as those slowly got taken and the market kept going. Now, I've been watching Cracker Barrel since it was above $100 a share. Now, I don't expect it to get back to that level anytime soon, but my hope is over the next 4 or 5 years that really maybe it does over time. If it can establish better earnings, better sales, show that it's not getting worse any longer, and nobody really pays attention to Cracker Barrel, it could drift higher and maybe even potentially in time make new highs. Stocks trend for a long time. If you hold them over 10-year periods, 20-year periods, and they're good companies that continue to grow, no matter what field, no matter what company it is, if you pick ones that do better and show potential for going the right direction, they continue in the right direction of the stock price as well. The third one that I really dug into yesterday was also another one that I was quite negative on because I hated what the CEO had to say, which is Starbucks. Thing is Starbucks is still the top in their industry. I already had a rather large position in Starbucks. It's actually one of my top, I don't know how high up it is in the portfolio, but one of the top holders I have. I still feel like at these valuations and being this out of favor, despite that I absolutely hated what the CEO had to say at the last report. He did the opposite of what the Nike CEO did. He blamed it on the consumers not recognizing the value of their brand and things like that, which I think is a terrible route to go. I think you need to find the right direction, accept the responsibility, and talk about the things you're going to do to improve your sales, not blame the consumer for their lack of understanding of your value proposition to them. Either way, I still think it's Starbucks. And what I think will happen is if he doesn't do a good job and if it doesn't start going in the right direction, maybe he gets replaced. But no matter what, their brand and their strength and everything else in the long run will probably come through and they'll find a way to drive those earnings back up. They give a nice dividend at the time, which it's nothing huge, but it's still a nice return on the investment. And I'm just guessing they continue to be the best in that field and continue to grow. It really amazes me as I've traveled to see that Starbucks is busy in other countries. I mean, when you're in Italy and you have all those options of those cafes that, in my personal opinion, have better coffee, they're still not as busy as the Starbucks. The other thing is, at the cafes, people will sit and have a cup of coffee for a long time. Starbucks is very American, where people go in, they get their coffee, they sit for a little while, or they just take it to go. So they're able to sell more cups per hour, is my guess, and they seem to still maintain lines and keep busy in these places that I think you have better options. It was the same thing when we went 2 years ago to Spain. I couldn't believe that I would see a line of people lined up to get their Starbucks. And my wife, who's from China, tells stories about her family who talks about two of the largest Starbucks that I've ever seen pictures of right across the street of each other, and both of them having lines out the door. Pretty wild, pretty amazing, pretty strong brand. I do think that the news and what they talk about one of the things that you would cut back on does make sense. I still think, like anything else, the best of the best tend to survive, tend to continue moving forward, and Starbucks is that. They are that brand. So those are the three that I really dug into this week, or actually yesterday, right on the open. I bought all three of them. I was pretty happy how they did throughout the day. I guess we'll see going forward because, like I said, it really does feel like a rotation to me. And I still think the tech stocks are a great investment. And, the Amazon and Meta, they're still my top holdings along with Starbucks as well. And I don't plan to change any of that. But in my account that I trade, as well as my dividend account, these are the things that I've really added on to. The one that's a set it and forget it account, it's a set it and forget it, and I don't pay attention because I still think in 20 years, Amazon will outperform Cracker Barrel. Now, maybe not based on today's prices, but over the long run as a company, I would rather be in Amazon. It's just the way my head works. They're just a behemoth, and I think they'll continue to perform. So, one of the other ones that I wanted to talk about that I'm going to continue to hold, and I like how it's been acting, is Target. Especially along the lines of the other, it's had some pretty negative news between closing stores and people comment about their woke politics and everything else. That stuff fades over time. Companies do just fine. And when I look at Target's valuation currently, I think they've already priced in a recession. So if we have a soft landing or if we don't have a slowdown as big as they're predicting, I think they've already discounted the price enough that you could really see it grow really well. It seems really inexpensive to me based on their earnings and their growth projections. So it's hard for me to imagine it's not a great value where it currently is. It's still amazing to me that it got down to close to $100 a share not that long ago. I've been really fortunate to have traded it well. I think picking it up when it fell again back into the mid $140 range was a great opportunity because I do think that the trend is higher, and I think at least I'm going to stick with it for the long run now. Target isn't really one of those companies I would put in the bucket of I want to own forever, but I still think they're a great company and their earnings are really good. And when I look at the value, the pricing seems really fair. So there's just no reason for me to make any change on it. Feel the same way about UPS. When they recently laid off a bunch of people, they had a rough quarter. I still think they're one of the greatest companies in that space that there is. I mean, they're a logistics company. We all know they do the shipping and everything else. Maybe they have some competition from companies like Amazon bringing it in house and doing it themselves. But I don't think they're not getting used, and they have agreements with a lot of companies where they do a lot of their shipping. So I just think UPS is going to be one of those for the long run, and my guess is their earnings continue to higher, whether that means they have to raise revenue from having less employees or not giving raises as quickly as possible. As much as I think that's not fair to the staff, I think it is to the shareholders, and I think that's going to drive the earnings higher, which is going to drive the stock price higher. And currently, it gives a great dividend right now as well, which isn't the main focus of what I'm looking for, but it's kind of like an added bonus the way I look at it. So UPS and Target are two that I want to continue to stay long, possibly add on to depending on my position and what I want and what I'm looking at. I'm probably going to stay away from the tech sector and not build that portfolio for a little while. And what I really think is you'll see what's going on now. You'll see big dramatic pullbacks, then you'll see the stocks start drifting higher. But I don't know that we'll get the follow through that we were before because I think the money's going to start funneling into the things that were undervalued. So whatever stocks it is that you've been looking at that look completely oversold and out of favor and nobody's paying attention to, that's the stuff I like. So feel free to comment about it and let me know what you're looking about. Anyway, do me a favor. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, make some comments. Let me know what you guys are thinking about. Sorry that I haven't been posting as often. When I get back home, I may start trying to do some lives and some other things. I guess we'll just see. Um, or I may slow down. I mean, the reality is, it's not like this is a big, I don't really make any money on here, so it just gives me an outlet to talk about the things that I watch and everything else. And kind of fun, gives me something to do, but we'll see what I do with it. Anyway, have a great day. Chime in. Let me know what you guys think.